Hi, I'm Reb Myron. I'm a minister through Pathways of Light, and I've been a Course in Miracles student for 40 years. I'm going through the lessons this year as I've done before, and I'm asking Jesus for clarity. Then I write from that clarity, and that's what I'm sharing with you today. So let's get started. Our topic for these lessons is, what is the Holy Spirit? Okay, so lesson 285. My holiness shines bright and clear today. Today I wake with joy, expecting but the happy things of God to come to me. I ask but them to come and realize my invitation will be answered by the thoughts to which it has been sent by me. And I will ask for only joyous things the instant I accept my holiness. For what would be the use of pain to me? What purpose would my suffering fulfill? And how would grief and loss avail me if insanity departs from me today, and I accept my holiness instead? Father, my holiness is yours. Let me rejoice in it, and through forgiveness be restored to your sanity. Your Son is still as you created him. My holiness is part of me and also part of you. And what can alter holiness itself? We're always choosing holiness or guilt as our reality. This is a very straightforward lesson. I'm very holy. I expect only happy things of God to come to me today. I will accept these joyous things as I accept my holiness. I understand that it's not my ego justification, my ego personification that is holy. Myron isn't holy. Who I am is holy, because who I am is as God created me. Even so, my world is an accurate representation of what I believe about myself. If the images I make of myself are not indicative of holiness, I need to heal my mind. Knowing I am holy, why would I accept pain and suffering instead? It follows that if I am accepting pain and suffering, I must be refusing to accept my holiness. In other words, I'm refusing to accept myself as who I am, my true self. Since Jesus has told us many times now that we are holy, what could be the reason we don't accept him at his word? The only reason for not accepting our holiness is the belief that we're guilty. Jesus has assured us often that we are as God created us and that we are innocent. There would seem to be no reason to believe that we are guilty. The reason we feel guilty or think someone else is guilty is that we're listening to the ego. The ego is all about fear and guilt, and will always judge everyone as guilty. Ego thoughts hurt us and keep us in hell. Fortunately, we know that we can elect to change all thoughts that hurt us. When we feel less than joyous, we know that we need to examine the thoughts in our mind. Maybe we feel unworthy of holiness. An example of this happened one morning. I woke up later than expected and realized I would not be able to get done all that I planned to do before my call started. I noticed a worried thought about this, and when I focused on it, my worry increased, but along with it, my guilt. My thought was that I should not have watched that extra episode of Chicago Med. I should have gone to bed earlier. I should have done more yesterday so that this work was already done. You see how one thought leads to another if we choose an ego thought to focus on? Very quickly, I realized that what had happened, and I changed each thought that was hurting me. I did not sin, and I decided I would not punish myself. If I kept up this kind of thinking, I would start feeling unworthy of holiness. I would believe I had forfeited holiness and wouldn't believe it was mine. But holiness is not something that comes and goes, or is affected by my behaviors or my thoughts. It is what I am. I lost my mind for a moment. For a few minutes this morning, I lost my mind. I believed I could be less than I was created. Since that could only be an illusion, I was able to change my mind about what I believed. I can change my mind about any illusion, but I cannot affect creation. I am creation, and so I cannot change what I am. The only thing that can happen is that I block my awareness of self as I turn my attention to the world or to the ego thought. But I remain holy, no matter what nonsense I temporarily believe. Regina's tips. You can receive clear answers from spiritual intuition if you ask questions that are focused on its purpose. For example, instead of asking, "How can I make money?" you might say, "I feel unsafe. How shall I look at this?" Other good questions are, "What will you share with me about this? And what is it that I need to see in my mind?" Instead of asking, "Should I stay in this relationship or leave?" try describing how you feel in the relationship and then ask, "What guidance do you have for me?" When you seek an answer from spiritual intuition, it's good to ask open-minded questions. Don't attempt to lead spiritual intuition by putting a possible answer in your question. For example, don't ask yes or no questions. Spiritual intuition is the inner teacher, so its answers leave the focus of teaching. So its answers have the focus of teaching and pointing toward truth. And all of those things, all of those questions that Regina gave as a way of asking, I really like those. So that's a part of Regina's tips on the Holy Spirit that I found helpful. It's a way I ask questions too. She also has more information, such as these questions are world-focused questions. Spiritual intuition has a function of awakening you from the world entirely. It cannot awaken you from the world and guide you in the world too. That would be confusing its purpose. Well, I have to disagree with this, and I want to go into it a bit because of the confusion I hear about in the Course community. Here are some of the passages from the Course that guide my thinking. In the Song of Prayer, Jesus says this: "You have been told to ask the Holy Spirit for the answer to any specific problem, and you will receive a specific answer as such as your need." It also says this: "There are decisions to make here, and they must be made, whether they be illusions or not. You cannot be asked to accept answers which are beyond the level of need that you can recognize. Therefore, it's not the form of the question that matters, nor how it is asked. The form of the answer, if given by God, will suit your need as you see it." In the text, he says this: "It is only because you think that you can run some little part or deal with certain aspects of your life alone that the guidance of the Holy Spirit is limited. Thus would you make him undependable and use this fancied undependability as an excuse for keeping certain dark lessons from him. And by so limiting the guidance that you would accept, you're unable to depend on miracles to answer all your problems for you." And in chapter 13, section 7, "Only the Holy Spirit knows what you need, for he will give you all things that do not block the way to light." And what else could you need? In time, he gives you all the things that you need have, and will renew them as long as you have need of them. He will take nothing from you as long as you have need of it. And yet he knows that everything you need is temporary and will but last until you step aside from all your needs and realize that all of them have been fulfilled. Therefore, he has no investment in the things that he supplies, except to make certain that you will not use them on behalf of lingering in time. He knows that you're not at home there, and he wills no delay to wait upon your joyous homecoming. And in that same chapter, he says, leave then your needs to him. He will supply them with no emphasis at all upon them. And what comes to you of him comes safely, for he will ensure it never can become a dark spot hidden in your mind and kept to hurt you. Under his guidance, you will travel light and journey lightly, for his sight is ever on the journey's end, which is his goal. Now, having said this, I do understand Regina's point. While, as an example, I would not ask God for money, I do talk to him about my problems, knowing I will be guided in the best way possible. I will be guided in a way that answers my needs and simultaneously teaches me I have no needs. He also meets me where I am, and his answer will as well take me further along. For instance, I used to be afraid of not having enough money. I worried about it all the time. I would pray to win the lottery so that I would not have this fear anymore. God answered my prayers. Money has always showed up when I needed it, but winning the lottery was a misguided prayer. It was telling God how to do his job. It was like putting a prayer in the divine vending machine and expecting the winning number to come out. It was praying as a spiritual child would pray. Actually, I'm happy I never received that answer, because those years of feeling impoverished gave me the opportunity to learn lessons in abundance. I saw that no matter how much money I made, I always felt poor. Looking back on it, I can't believe it took me so long to realize that. Now, even though I have little money, I never feel poor. I always trust that what is needed will show up, and it does, sometimes in the most miraculous ways. The healing of my mind was a lottery I won, and I'm grateful that it is so. In the same way, I don't ask God to heal my body. I ask him to heal my mind of the beliefs that cause sickness to show up in my body. I don't ask him to make my child treat me differently, love me more, respect me. Instead, I ask him what he wants to teach me about relationships. So actually, I do exactly what Regina said. I tell him how I feel and what I'm thinking and ask him for correction, knowing that if I feel a lack, it must be that I place my focus on ego thoughts of lack. If something seems wrong in my mind, I turn that over to him in absolute trust that his will is my will, and that is all I want. I do expect to be led in my life as long as I keep my mind open and receptive to higher guidance. I often stop and ask, what is it I should do now? And listen to that answer. And I do that. Here's another way I see this, and it is where she and I differ. My mind is split. I use one part of my mind to operate the ego thought system. The other part is my holy mind, or my right mind, where the Holy Spirit resides. I make it a habit to always think with my right mind rather than the ego mind. That only makes sense. Why would I make a habit of going to my ego when that is a habit I'm trying to break? For instance, I'm always misplacing my keys. I will look for a while and then get tired of looking and ask the Holy Spirit where they are and go right to them. This is using the right mind. I feel uncertain about whether I should spend money on a certain thing, and I ask the Holy Spirit for guidance. I'm just using my right mind for this, as I make the habit of not using the ego mind for anything. Am I wrong about this? I don't know. I just know that it is a happy way to live. Also, doing it this way works all the time, whereas those times when I operate from my ego mind, It sometimes works and sometimes does not. I've learned to do what helps without needing to understand fully or needing to take it apart and make sense of it. Also, I've discovered there are many paths to the same destination. So while this works for me, doing it differently will work as well, as long as we're clear as to our goal. In 2011, the Holy Spirit gave me a little advice. I asked him, what can I do to more quickly experience my holiness? And Holy Spirit said, let go of self-will by asking for my guidance in all things. Be mindful of ego beliefs held in the mind and offer them for correction. Doing these things will remove the blocks that keep your holiness from your awareness. Do these things more effectively through nurturing your willingness and through giving me moments of silence. As you quiet your mind of the ego chatter, I will fill it with the truth. I will remind you of your deepest desire, which is to know God. That desire will compel you to the vigilance that is still necessary at this time. Thank you so much for being here with me this morning, studying this lesson. If you found it helpful, then please like it. And if you haven't yet, I would ask you to subscribe. And I'll be back tomorrow with another lesson.